right, we're on lesson 12-2 today. We're continuing those quadratics, and I guess you're catching on. That's all that factoring stuff we did. Today we're going to do a concept that we will do over and over and over and over again, called completing the square. You'll use this and you'll remember it like the back of your hand, but let's go ahead and learn it. Our essential question says, can you solve quadratic equations by completing the square? This is very, very, very important. The first thing that I'm going to show you is not solving a quadratic equation. It's literally just completing the square. So I'm going to write down some notes. Complete the square. Number one, this is knowing that this is ax squared plus bx plus c. You're going to take half of b. Well, if this is a is 1. In this case, this is b. Well, if I take half of negative 20, that's negative 10. Number 2, you are going to square it. Well, negative 10 squared is 100. Okay, and the whole reason that we do this is because we're going to eventually go ahead and make it a perfect square. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is just all that factoring that we did. Now this is not, they're just asking you to actually give us that 100. But if I had to make this a perfect square, we would do x minus 10 quantity squared. Example 2 is not as pretty. A is 1, b is 11. Well, half of 11 is 11 halves. And if I square that, I get 121 over 4. Now, if I had to make that a perfect square, which sometimes I let you guys avoid doing this, so you may like me for that, I'll show you when. We're going to have a plus, remember it's always just that halvesies, 11 over 2. Now let's answer a question. Where did I get the minus? Where did I get the plus? Notice that b term has the sign that's going to go along with it. So we're going to go with that b term. All right, so let's see what they mean by solving using completing the square. The first thing that I have is this 23. The first thing I would tell you to do is I would see if we could factor this. Are there factors of 23 that add up to be negative 24? There actually are. But because they told us to solve by completing the square, we're going to do that first, and then I'll show you what I meant. So the first thing we're going to do is bring this guy over by subtracting. So I now have y, I think that was a plus, oh, minus, glad I checked. Y squared minus 24y is equal to negative 23. And we're going to go to our steps of completing the square. B is negative 24. Half of b is negative 12. If I square it, I can add 144. Remember, what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. So, y minus 12 squared is really what we're looking for. We want to make these perfect squares right here. And 144 minus 23 looks like it is 121. Oh, great, that's a perfect square. So going back to the lesson that we just did, remember if I take the square root of each side, the perfect squares cancel out, square root of square, and we get y minus 12 is equal to plus or minus 11, because remember we always need two answers. And from here, I can add 12 over, y is equal to 12 plus or minus 11. Well, I actually have to write down what those are. All right, so remember that 12 plus 11 is 23. 12 minus 11 is 1. So my two answers are 23 and 1. But let's go ahead and talk about how we know how to factor this. You guys know how to find the factors of 23 that add up to be negative 24. Let's talk about what those are. They are 23 times 1, and remember they would both be negative. And we've solved like this in the past. We've taken y minus 23 and made it equal to 0, y minus 1 and made that equal to 0. And you guys are probably saying in your head really quickly, hey, this is 23 and this one is 1. So no matter how you do it, you can get the right answer, but when the directions could explain solve by completing the square, please actually complete the square. All right, let's move on to one of these. I'm going to show you how not to do this. We're going to skip this for now. So I'm going to write skip for now, and you're going to see why in the next lesson. I don't even waste our time because a lot of you remember the next part more. So let's go ahead and solve number 5 by completing the square. If I'm to solve number 5, x squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 0, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the 8 by subtracting it over. Then I'm going to take half of the b term. Half of negative 6 is negative 3. When I square it, I get 9. What I do to the left, I do to the right. I typically write these in little squares. I wonder why I'm not. So this becomes a perfect square of x minus 3 quantity squared, and negative 8 plus 9 is 1. And now we're just going to solve this like we learned to. Remember that I can go ahead and take the square root of each side. So I get x minus 3 equals plus or minus 1. And from here, when I add 3 over, x equals 3 plus or minus 1. So we have two solutions. 3 plus 1 is 4. 3 minus 1 is 2. And that is solving by completing the square.